In Hollywood's golden age, beauty wasn't just admired, it was immortalized. But time has a way of rewriting even the most glamorous legends. Today, we're pulling back the velvet curtain to reveal how 25 of cinema's most iconic actresses transformed over the decades. Their rise was dazzling, their legacy undeniable. But their later years tell stories far more human, vulnerable, and unforgettable. Stay with me. Some of these changes are shocking. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss a deep dive like this. And while you're here, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now as you're listening? Let's see how far this community reaches. 1. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth was the kind of Hollywood star whose beauty seemed almost unreal. Throughout the 1940s, she embodied glamour so completely that her image became synonymous with the era itself. Her signature red hair, effortless sensuality, and magnetic screen presence made her one of the most photographed women of her generation. Audiences couldn't get enough of her, and studios knew it, casting her in roles that emphasized her striking looks as much as her talent. But what people often forget is that her later years told a very different story. Long before the public understood the condition that would slowly reshape her appearance, she began to withdraw from the spotlight. Her once luminous expression softened, her movements changed, and the contrast between her youthful glow and her later life left many fans shocked when photos emerged. Despite these changes, those who knew her emphasized her warmth, dignity, and gentleness, qualities that endured even as fame faded. Rita's journey reflects the truth that even icons are human, subject to time and health challenges beyond their control. And yet, the power of her legacy remains untouched. The face of 1940s Hollywood glamour, preserved forever on film. As we move forward, her story sets the stage for another legendary beauty who made a very different choice about the spotlight, and whose transformation fascinated the world in its own unique way. 2. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo's transformation was remarkable not because of illness or public decline, but because she chose disappearance as her strategy for aging. Known for her statuesque beauty and mysterious aura, Garbo captivated audiences throughout the 1920s and 1930s. She had a face perfectly suited for the camera, angular, expressive, timeless. Yet as soon as she felt Hollywood pulling more from her than she wanted to give, she walked away. Not gradually, not with a farewell tour, but with a firm and decisive exit. In her early retirement, she still carried that unmistakable elegance. But as decades passed, her appearance shifted naturally with age. What made her transformation stand out was the contrast between the vivid cinematic memory of her youth and the unfiltered images captured by distant photographers in her later years. Because she refused interviews, refused comebacks, and refused Hollywood's expectations, each rare sighting became headline material. She aged privately, but the world watched anyway, comparing the reclusive older woman to the ethereal goddess they remembered. Garbo's story shows how public memory can freeze a person at a single moment in time, leaving audiences unprepared for the reality that follows. And as we explore these transformations further, the next actress on our list faced something even more challenging, aging under the weight of tremendous physical setbacks and a life lived fully in the public eye. If you're enjoying this journey through Hollywood's past, don't forget to subscribe. It helps the channel grow and brings you more stories like this. And while you're here, drop a comment below. Where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? I love seeing how many corners of the world come together in these moments. 3. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner wasn't just beautiful. She was often described as one of the most breathtaking women Hollywood had ever seen. Her face carried a kind of effortless symmetry, and her voice added a smoky magnetism that completed her allure. During the height of her career in the 1940s and 1950s, she became the definitive example of natural glamour. But her later years told a more complex story. Ava lived intensely. Passion, career demands, travel, and difficult relationships shaped her life, and over time they also shaped her appearance. Health struggles gradually altered her look, and by the time she neared the end of her life, the contrast between her youthful image and her older self was stark. For fans who had adored her in films like The Barefoot Contessa and Mogambo, seeing her later photos could be jarring. Yet her spirit remained fierce. She continued to smoke, laugh, host friends, and live with the same personality that made her unforgettable on screen. Aging may have changed her physically, but it never dimmed her charisma. Ava's transformation represents the unpredictable path of a life lived boldly, without apology. And now, as we move to the next actress, we encounter someone whose evolution was shaped not just by time, but by an extraordinary combination of fame, resilience, and lifelong public fascination. 4. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor's beauty was once considered almost otherworldly. With her rare violet eyes, symmetrical features, and unmistakable screen presence, she dominated Hollywood from childhood through adulthood. She wasn't just admired, she was studied, photographed, and mythologized. For decades, she embodied the idea of classic glamour. But unlike many stars who faded quietly, Elizabeth lived her entire life under the full force of public scrutiny. Every marriage, every film, every health scare became a headline, and that constant spotlight shaped the way the world viewed her transformation over time. As she grew older, her body endured a long series of illnesses, injuries, and medical complications. These challenges led to noticeable changes in her appearance, weight fluctuations, facial swelling, and mobility difficulties. Yet she remained defiantly public, attending events, giving interviews, and continuing her philanthropic work, especially for causes that mattered deeply to her. Fans were often surprised by how dramatically she changed from the luminous beauty of the 1950s and 60s, but those who admired her understood she faced far more than the usual pressures of aging. Elizabeth's final years showed a woman who had lived fully, cared deeply, and fought continuously for her health. Her transformation was dramatic, but her spirit and humor remained intact. And as we turn the page from her story, we move toward an actress whose meticulous public image unraveled in a very different, far more hidden way, one that left the world stunned when they saw her in her final days. 5. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford built her career on discipline, ambition, and a powerful screen presence. She was known for her sharp features, expressive eyes, and a kind of intensity that made her unforgettable in both silent films and talkies. Throughout her career, she meticulously crafted every part of her persona. Her wardrobe, her roles, even the way she lit her home was designed to preserve that commanding, glamorous image. But behind the scenes, she was constantly battling the pressure of aging in an industry that prized youth above all else. In her later years, Crawford's appearance changed dramatically. The once sculpted angles of her face softened, and the careful styling that had defined her earlier fame became inconsistent as she dealt with health challenges. Toward the end of her life, she withdrew from public view in order to protect the image she had spent decades building. When rare photos surfaced from this period, fans were startled by how different she looked compared to the controlled beauty of her prime. Yet those close to her spoke of her sharp mind, her humor, and her relentless professionalism, qualities that outlasted any physical change. Crawford's transformation highlighted the cost of a career built on perfection, and how aging can feel harsher when the world expects a legend to remain unchanged. And stepping from her story into the next, we meet a star whose fierce personality and powerful performances stood in stark contrast to the physical challenges that reshaped her life in shocking and unforgettable ways. 6. Bette Davis. Bette Davis was never just a beauty, she was a force of nature. Known for her expressive eyes and razor-sharp wit, she commanded every frame she appeared in. Her early career showcased a striking, intense kind of attractiveness that set her apart from the softer glamour of many of her contemporaries. Yet what truly made her remarkable was her refusal to be boxed in by Hollywood's expectations. She took risks, played complicated women, and chose roles that other actresses would never touch, creating a legacy built on skill rather than appearance. In the later decades of her life, Bette faced a long series of health battles that changed her physically. Her face became slimmer, her posture shifted, and her once bold expression softened in ways that made her nearly unrecognizable to some fans. Still, she never retreated. She continued to act, give interviews, and appear in public long after others might have stepped away. Her transformation was steep, but so was her determination. She remained outspoken, sharp, and fiercely independent until the end. What makes Bette Davis's journey stand out is the contrast between her commanding early presence and the fragile look of her final years. Through every change, she remained unapologetically herself, proving that identity lasts longer than appearance. And as we move from her defiant legacy, we now arrive at another Hollywood icon whose transformation surprised the world for reasons rooted not in illness, but in the complicated nature of maintaining beauty under the relentless eye of fame. 7. Lana Turner. Lana Turner was one of the most dazzling faces of Hollywood's golden years, a woman whose beauty helped define an era. Known as the original Sweater Girl, she had a polished glamour that made her instantly recognizable in films, magazines, and publicity stills across the world. Audiences saw her as the ideal blend of innocence and allure, a star whose physical presence was as captivating as her dramatic performances. But behind the scenes, Turner lived a life filled with emotional turbulence, difficult relationships, and the constant pressure of being one of Hollywood's most photographed women. Those stresses, along with the natural course of aging, eventually began to show. By the time she reached the later decades of her life, Lana's appearance had changed significantly. She experienced health issues that affected her mobility and facial features, and her once smooth, glowing complexion gave way to the signs of age that even Hollywood icons cannot escape. For fans accustomed to the youthful image preserved in her films, the contrast was striking. Yet her elegance remained. Her voice, her posture, and her sense of style stayed with her long after her appearance shifted. Lana Turner's transformation reminds us how deeply the industry depends on image, and how hard it is for stars to live up to their own legend. Her journey sets the stage for a very different kind of story, one defined by longevity. An actress who lived long enough for multiple generations to witness the natural evolution of her beauty. 8. Olivia de Havilland. Olivia de Havilland is one of the rare actresses whose life spanned more than a century, giving the world an unusually long view of how a Hollywood legend changes over time. In her youth, she radiated a soft beauty that made her perfect for period dramas, romantic roles, and the kind of graceful characters that defined her early career. Films like Gone with the Wind cemented her status as a timeless star, admired for her gentle features and her dignified on-screen presence. But unlike many actors who vanished from the spotlight after their peak decades, Olivia continued to appear at public events through her 80s, 90s, and even past 100. Living to 104 meant she experienced more physical transformation than most celebrities ever do. Her face changed gradually, then more noticeably as she entered very old age. Fans who saw her at ceremonies or in late-life interviews were often surprised by how different she looked, simply because so few Hollywood stars live long enough for the world to witness that full arc. Yet she never feared being seen. Her charm and intelligence remained intact, giving her presence an elegance that transcended appearance. Olivia's evolution was a testament to graceful aging, but also a reminder of how time reshapes even the most iconic faces. And as we move to the next actress on our list, we explore a woman whose transformation occurred largely out of sight, creating a striking contrast between her screen image and the private life she chose later on. 9. Joan Fontaine. Joan Fontaine's beauty had a uniquely delicate quality. Her soft voice, refined expressions, and poised demeanor made her one of the standout actresses of the 1940s. She rose to fame in films that showcased her innocence and emotional depth, earning her an Academy Award and securing her place among Hollywood's elite. During her career, Joan was known for her youthful charm and elegant appearance, traits that helped define her screen personas. But unlike stars who remained constantly visible, Fontaine gradually stepped away from Hollywood, creating a long separation between the public memory of her youth and her later life reality. As the years passed, Joan's appearance naturally changed, particularly as she moved into her 70s, 80s, and beyond. Her face thinned, her features softened, and the glamorous image captured in film stills gave way to the unmistakable signs of age. Because she had retired far from the spotlight, many fans were taken aback when late-life photos surfaced, showing a woman whose appearance differed dramatically from her classic roles. Yet those who knew her personally spoke of her sharp mind, dry humor, and lively personality, traits that stayed strong even as her physical presence evolved. Fontaine's journey shows how memory often freezes celebrities at their youthful peak, leaving the public unprepared for the transformations that come later. And now, as we continue forward, we arrive at an actress whose powerful identity and singular talent made her one of Hollywood's boldest stars. Someone whose aging brought changes as remarkable as the roles that once defined her. 10. Katharine Hepburn. Katharine Hepburn was never a conventional beauty, yet she became one of the most iconic women in Hollywood history. With her sharp cheekbones, athletic build, and confident, almost rebellious attitude, she carved a distinctive place for herself in an industry dominated by traditional glamour. Audiences admired her fierce independence, her quick wit, and her ability to bring intelligence and emotional complexity to films such as The Philadelphia Story, Bringing Up Baby, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Hepburn's elegance was less about softness and more about spirit, an energy that radiated both on and off the screen. She didn't simply act. She embodied authenticity long before Hollywood knew how to package it. As she aged, the transformation in her appearance was dramatic, shaped in part by natural aging and in part by her well-known tremor, which became more pronounced in her later years. Her once strong features grew sharper, her frame more fragile, and her movements slower, creating a stark contrast to the vibrant, athletic woman audiences remembered from her early decades. Hepburn continued working deep into old age, so her changing appearance unfolded publicly, making the transition more noticeable. Yet even in her later years, she retained a regal, unmistakable presence. Her voice, her spirit, and her intense gaze remained intact. Hepburn's transformation is a testament to a life lived boldly and without apology. She didn't attempt to hide from the world. She faced aging with the same courage that defined her career. And from her story of fierce independence and public vulnerability, we now move to another screen legend, an actress whose smoky voice, sultry stare, and unforgettable debut made her a defining beauty of her era, and whose own later life evolution captivated audiences just as profoundly. 11. Lauren Bacall. Lauren Bacall's entrance into Hollywood was nothing short of explosive. With her smoky voice, sculpted features, and the iconic look she debuted into Have and Have Not, she instantly became one of the most mesmerizing stars of the 1940s. Audiences were captivated by her cool confidence, her sly charm, and the magnetic chemistry she shared with Humphrey Bogart. Bacall's beauty wasn't the fragile ingenue type. It was bold, striking, and mature, even when she was still in her teens. She carried herself with a self-assured sophistication that made her stand out in an industry full of glamour. As she moved through her career, she continued to command the screen with intelligence, sharp wit, and undeniable presence. But Bacall's aging process was more visible than many of her contemporaries because she continued working steadily for decades. As time passed, her angular beauty softened, her expressions changed, and her signature smoky quality took on a different tone. She aged gracefully, yet the contrast between her youthful fire and her more subdued later appearance was noticeable. Longtime fans sometimes found it jarring to compare the bold young star of the 1940s with the older woman who appeared in interviews and award shows in her final decades. Still, Bacall never tried to conceal the passage of time. She embraced her age with dignity and humor, remaining active, outspoken, and engaged with her craft. Through every transformation, Lauren Bacall stayed true to herself, evolving, adapting, and aging naturally in an industry that rarely allows such freedom. And from her story of strength and self-possession, we move to one of Hollywood's most legendary figures, a woman whose life and appearance remain subjects of endless fascination, an icon whose transformation, even within her short life, still sparks intense discussion today. 12. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe's beauty was so iconic, so deeply woven into global pop culture, that her image remains instantly recognizable decades after her passing. With her platinum hair, luminous smile, and vulnerable charm, she became Hollywood's ultimate symbol of glamour. Films like Some Like It Hot, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and The 7-Year Itch showcased not only her comedic brilliance but the magnetic presence that made her one of the world's most photographed women. She cultivated an image of effortless allure, but behind the scenes, she was a hard-working performer, striving to be taken seriously as an actress and artist. Monroe's beauty was legendary, radiant, soft, and unforgettable. However, Monroe's appearance changed noticeably during the last years of her life. Even though she never reached old age, the strain of intense public scrutiny, personal challenges, and the overwhelming pressure to maintain perfection began to show. Late-period photographs reveal a more fragile version of the star, still beautiful, but with a palpable weariness that contrasted sharply with the glowing images from her early stardom. Her face became slightly fuller at times, more angular at others, and the once sparkling expression sometimes appeared subdued. These changes were subtle compared to the transformations of long-lived actresses, yet striking enough to spark conversations about how even the brightest icons were affected by stress, life circumstances, and the demands of fame. Marilyn Monroe's transformation reminds us that even legends are human, shaped not only by time, but by the weight of extraordinary expectations. And from her story of brilliance and vulnerability, we now shift to another beloved performer whose early beauty and immense talent were contrasted by notable changes later in life, creating one of the most dramatic visual evolutions in Hollywood history. 13. Judy Garland. Judy Garland's journey through Hollywood is one of the most complex and emotionally charged stories to emerge from the Golden Age. As a young star, she possessed a luminous charm that captivated audiences around the world. Her expressive eyes, warm smile, and extraordinary voice made her unforgettable in The Wizard of Oz, where she became a symbol of innocence and wonder. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, Garland's talent continued to shine in musical classics like Meet Me in St. Louis and A Star is Born. Yet her beauty was never only about looks. It was tied deeply to her emotional depth and vulnerability, qualities that made her performances resonate long after the final scene faded. But Garland's life was marked by pressures that affected her appearance over the years. The intense demands of her early career, combined with physical and emotional strain, often made her look older than her age. Her once youthful features changed noticeably during her later years, reflecting the toll of nonstop work and the weight of personal struggles. The fresh-faced teenager beloved by millions gradually transformed into a version of herself that fans sometimes found hard to reconcile with the image immortalized on film. The contrast was stark, yet deeply human, an example of how relentless expectations can shape both a performer's life and the way the public perceives them. Despite these changes, Garland's talent never dimmed. Her voice remained powerful, her presence magnetic, and her legacy unparalleled. Her transformation serves as a poignant reminder of the realities behind the curtain of fame. And from her story of brilliance and fragility, We turn now to another actress whose transformation became widely discussed. Not because of illness or early pressures, but because of the very public evolution of her appearance in later decades. 14. Kim Novak. Kim Novak entered Hollywood as a vision of cool, understated beauty, mysterious, poised, and instantly captivating. With her icy blonde hair, striking eyes, and quietly alluring aura, she became one of the defining stars of the 1950s. Her performance in Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo cemented her legacy, presenting her as both ethereal and emotionally complex. Novak had a natural, almost effortless elegance that set her apart from more overtly glamorous contemporaries. She wasn't flashy, she glowed with a quiet intensity, giving her roles a depth that resonated with audiences long after the credits rolled. But unlike many Golden Age actresses who aged mostly out of the spotlight, Novak reappeared in later decades, and her transformation became the subject of widespread discussion. Over time, she underwent visible changes influenced by age, lifestyle, and eventually cosmetic procedures, which altered the features audiences remembered so vividly from her early films. Some fans were surprised by the contrast, expecting the icy Hitchcock blonde to remain frozen in time. Instead, Novak presented herself openly, evolving, experimenting, and embracing personal choices even in the face of public critique. What makes Kim Novak's story compelling isn't the change itself, but her refusal to apologize for it. She often spoke candidly about the pressures placed on women in Hollywood and how difficult it was to maintain an image that the public demanded. Her later life appearance became a symbol of autonomy, a woman choosing her own path, regardless of commentary. And from her story of transformation and defiance, we now move to another legendary beauty, a star whose early radiance and later life evolution illustrate the profound effects of time on even the most celebrated faces of classic cinema. 15. Dolores Del Rio. Dolores Del Rio was one of the earliest international beauties of Hollywood's golden age, a woman whose elegance, poise, and expressive features made her a standout long before diversity found a place in mainstream cinema. Her almond-shaped eyes, sculpted cheekbones, and graceful movements captivated audiences in the 1920s and 1930s, establishing her as one of the first major Latina stars in Hollywood. With films like Flying Down to Rio and Bird of Paradise, she cultivated an image that was both exotic and refined, embodying a type of beauty that felt timeless. Beyond her physical appeal, Del Rio carried herself with a dignified serenity, often compared to royalty both on and off the screen. As the decades passed, Dolores Del Rio returned to Mexico and enjoyed a second, deeply respected phase of her career. Yet, like all iconic beauties, time reshaped her appearance. In her later years, the sharp lines of her youthful face softened, and the radiant glow that defined her early stardom gave way to the natural signs of aging. Fans who remembered her as the ethereal young star were sometimes surprised by the contrast between her youthful photographs and the more fragile image she presented in old age. Still, Del Rio accepted her transformation with grace, maintaining the same elegance she had always shown, even as her looks changed dramatically. Her story reflects the arc of a true pioneer, someone who opened doors, defined an era, and evolved with dignity as time moved on. And from her transformation, we now transition to another legendary figure, a silent era icon, whose later life appearance was shaped not only by aging, but by the dramatic theatricality that made her unforgettable. 16. Gloria Swanson. Gloria Swanson was the embodiment of silent film glamour, bold, expressive, commanding, and unmissable in every frame she occupied. With her dramatic makeup, sharp features, and expressive eyes, she rose to fame as one of the most iconic actresses of the 1920s. Her ability to convey emotion without sound made her a master of the medium, and her luxurious costumes and larger-than-life persona made her a symbol of sophistication. When she returned to the screen in Sunset Boulevard, she stunned audiences by blending her own legend with the haunting story of an aging star, cementing her place in cinematic history. In her later years, Swanson's appearance shifted in a way that fascinated the public. She continued to embrace theatrical makeup, bold fashion, and dramatic presentation long after her silent film days had passed. Time softened the once defined angles of her face, and her features became more delicate, yet she maintained an unmistakable sense of grandeur. Some fans found the contrast between her youthful, goddess-like image and her later, heavily stylized appearance striking, especially as she leaned into eccentric glamour rather than pursuing a natural aging style. Swanson aged as she lived, on her own terms, boldly and unapologetically. Her transformation was less about decline and more about continued performance, proving that aging itself can become an artistic statement. And from her story of theatrical reinvention, we now move toward another actress whose early beauty was celebrated worldwide, yet whose later years revealed a striking and unexpected shift that shaped her legendary legacy. 17. Vivien Leigh. Vivien Leigh remains one of the most hauntingly beautiful actresses ever to grace the screen, remembered for her unforgettable performances in Gone with the Wind and A Streetcar Named Desire. Her delicate features, striking eyes, and ethereal presence made her seem almost otherworldly. Audiences were captivated not just by her beauty, but by the emotional complexity she brought to every character. Leigh wasn't merely a visual icon, she was a powerful performer who could communicate heartbreak, strength, and vulnerability with a single expression. At the height of her fame, she seemed frozen in time as the perfect embodiment of classic Hollywood allure. However, Leigh's later years brought profound changes to her appearance. Chronic illness impacted her health for decades, and the strain gradually became visible. The luminous glow and softness of her youth gave way to a more fragile, drawn look that contrasted sharply with the fresh-faced beauty the public adored. Fans who had seen only her most glamorous roles were often surprised to discover how dramatically her appearance had shifted as she aged. Yet those changes reflected a woman who endured tremendous personal challenges while continuing to work with grace and determination. Despite these transformations, Vivien Leigh's legacy remains defined by artistry rather than appearance. Her face may have changed, but her impact on film and theater never dimmed. And from her poignant journey, we now move to another Hollywood legend, an actress whose powerful screen presence and tough, independent spirit carried her through decades of evolving roles, and whose later life transformation was as striking as the characters she portrayed. 18. Barbara Stanwyck. Barbara Stanwyck's career is one of the most impressive in Hollywood history, marked by grit, versatility, and an unmistakable presence that set her apart from her contemporaries. Known for films such as Double Indemnity, Stella Dallas, and Ball of Fire, she possessed a natural beauty that combined strength with subtle elegance. Stanwyck's expressive eyes, confident posture, and commanding energy made her instantly captivating on screen. While she was admired for her looks, it was her talent and determination that earned her a long, distinguished career spanning both film and television. As she grew older, Stanwyck's appearance changed noticeably, especially as she entered her later decades. Her once soft features became sharper, her frame slimmer, and her overall look more severe. These changes were accentuated by her preference for minimal cosmetic enhancement. She allowed age to show, even as Hollywood continued to prize youthful beauty. Fans who remembered her from her sultry noir performances sometimes found the contrast startling when comparing her early glamour to her more austere later appearance. Still, Stanwyck carried herself with the same strong, dignified presence that had defined her entire career, proving that charisma does not fade with age. Her transformation speaks to a life lived with integrity, an actress who embraced authenticity over illusion. And from Stanwyck's powerful journey, we now shift to another classic beauty whose signature hairstyle and mysterious allure made her iconic, yet whose later years revealed one of the most dramatic visual transformations in Golden Age Hollywood. 19. Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake became an overnight sensation with her signature peekaboo hairstyle, a sultry cascade of blonde waves that partially covered one eye and instantly set her apart from every other actress of the 1940s. Her icy beauty, mysterious aura, and cool, understated voice made her the perfect femme fatale in films like This Gun for Hire and The Blue Dahlia. She embodied a unique blend of softness and sharpness, an almost dreamlike quality that fascinated audiences. For a time, Lake was not just a movie star. She was a fashion phenomenon, with women across the country copying her hairstyle in magazines, praising her as one of Hollywood's most enchanting beauties. However, Lake's later life brought dramatic changes that deeply affected her appearance. After stepping away from Hollywood, she faced personal and financial challenges that took a visible toll. The luminous glow that once defined her screen presence faded as she returned to a quieter, more private life. By the time she re-emerged in occasional interviews or photographs, fans were often struck by how different she looked from the legendary blonde of the 1940s. Her once polished Hollywood image had given way to a more weathered, unadorned appearance that contrasted sharply with her youthful allure. Yet Veronica Lake's story is not one of lost beauty. It's one of human complexity. Her transformation reflects the pressures of fame, the difficulties of life outside the studio system, and the reality that even the most iconic looks cannot remain frozen in time. And from her poignant journey, we transition to another beloved actress of the era, a star whose warm charm and bright screen presence made her unforgettable, even as time reshaped her appearance in later years. 20. Ann Sheridan. Ann Sheridan, known as the Oomph Girl, was one of the most charismatic and relatable stars of Hollywood's golden age. With her infectious smile, lively personality, and confident screen presence, she struck a balance between glamour and approachability that set her apart from other leading ladies. Films like Angels with Dirty Faces, King's Row, and The Man Who Came to Dinner showcased her unique blend of humor, strength, and sex appeal. Sheridan's natural beauty, marked by expressive eyes and a warm, vibrant glow, made her a fan favorite who appealed to both men and women alike. As she grew older, Sheridan's appearance changed significantly, influenced by illness and the natural aging process. The fresh, energetic look that defined her early career softened, and her features became more delicate as she stepped back from the spotlight. Fans who remembered her from her lively comedic roles and dramatic performances sometimes found the contrast surprising when they saw images from her later years. While she preferred a private life away from Hollywood in her final decades, the glimpses the public did see revealed a woman whose appearance had transformed much more dramatically than many expected. Despite these changes, Ann Sheridan's charm and talent remained undeniable. Her legacy is rooted in her vibrant personality and the joy she brought to audiences, not in the fading of youth. And from her story of early sparkle and later life transformation, we now move to another actress whose classical beauty and graceful presence evolved over many decades, creating one of the most striking contrasts between youthful radiance and mature elegance in Golden Age cinema. 21. Jean Simmons. Jean Simmons possessed a rare, almost ethereal beauty that made her one of the most captivating actresses of the mid-20th century. Beginning her career in British cinema, she quickly rose to prominence with her roles in Great Expectations, Black Narcissus, and Hamlet, where her delicate features and expressive eyes earned international attention. When she transitioned to Hollywood, Simmons continued to shine in classics like Guys and Dolls, Elmer Gantry, and Spartacus. Her beauty carried a softness that felt timeless, refined, gentle, and almost angelic. Audiences were drawn to her serene presence, an elegance both natural and deeply expressive. But as the decades passed, Simmons' appearance changed noticeably. Time reshaped the delicate features that had once defined her youthful allure, and her once radiant complexion grew more lined as she aged. Unlike many stars who remained constantly in the public eye, Simmons kept a relatively low profile later in life, which made the contrast even more startling when she did appear. Fans who remembered her as the luminous young actress with the soulful gaze sometimes struggled to reconcile that image with the older woman who emerged in interviews and late career roles. These changes were natural and expected, yet they highlighted how dramatically aging can transform even the most classically beautiful faces. Despite this transformation, Simmons remained dignified and deeply respected. Her talent outlasted her youthful appearance, proving that her legacy rested on far more than looks alone. And from her story, we transition to another celebrated red-haired beauty, an actress whose fiery presence and classic Hollywood glamour were contrasted sharply by the dramatic shifts in her appearance during her later years. 22. Susan Hayward. Susan Hayward was known for her fierce intensity, striking red hair, and undeniable screen presence. Rising to fame in films like With a Song in My Heart, I'll Cry Tomorrow, and I Want to Live, she earned a reputation as one of Hollywood's strongest dramatic actresses. Her beauty was bold and memorable, bright eyes, sculpted features, and a confidence that radiated through every performance. At her peak, Hayward embodied a combination of glamour and toughness that set her apart from softer, more traditional leading ladies. However, Hayward's appearance shifted dramatically as she aged, influenced by both natural aging and significant health struggles. The vibrant glow that defined her early career faded, and her features became more angular and fragile. By the time she appeared in her final public roles and photographs, many fans were taken aback by how different she looked from the fiery star they remembered. The contrast between the stunning young actress who lit up the screen and the older woman shaped by years of illness and personal challenges was striking. Yet these changes also revealed her resilience, a testament to the life she lived and the strength she carried throughout her career. Even in her later years, Hayward maintained an aura of dignity and resolve. Her transformation reflects the complex journey of a woman who faced life head-on, with courage both on and off the screen. And from her compelling story, we now move to another iconic beauty, an actress known for her curves, confidence, and unforgettable presence, whose own later life transformation left a powerful impression on Hollywood fans worldwide. 23. Jane Russell. Jane Russell was one of Hollywood's most dynamic bombshells, known for her statuesque figure, sultry voice, and confident screen presence. Rising to fame with The Outlaw, she quickly became a symbol of bold, unapologetic glamour. Unlike many actresses who cultivated a delicate or mysterious image, Russell embodied strength and self-assuredness. Her dark hair, striking eyebrows, and curvy silhouette made her instantly recognizable, while her wit and charisma set her apart from the typical pin-up star. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, she dominated the screen with a mix of humor, sex appeal, and natural charm that audiences adored. But as she grew older, Russell's appearance changed significantly. With advancing age and health challenges, her features became heavier and less defined, creating a noticeable contrast to the sharp, smoldering beauty audiences remembered. Later public appearances revealed a woman whose face had transformed considerably, surprising fans who still pictured her as the glamorous leading lady of Hollywood's golden years. Time reshaped the iconic bombshell into a figure far removed from the seductive image that once dominated magazine covers. Yet Russell never lost her spirited personality. She embraced life openly, maintained her humor, and continued engaging with fans. Her transformation illustrated how even the most striking beauties evolve dramatically with age. And from her journey, we now move to another actress whose refined elegance and screen versatility brought her admiration across generations, yet whose later life appearance changed substantially, from the luminous figure audiences once knew. 24. Eleanor Parker. Eleanor Parker was celebrated for her extraordinary versatility, earning her the nickname, the Woman of 1,000 Faces. Whether portraying strong-willed heroines, refined aristocrats, or emotional dramatic leads, she brought sophistication and depth to every role. With her delicate features, expressive eyes, and regal presence, Parker became one of the most admired beauties of the 1940s and 1950s. Films like Caged, The Man with the Golden Arm, and The Sound of Music showcased her immense range and quiet elegance. Her beauty was classic, graceful, poised, and subtly powerful. As Parker aged, her appearance changed noticeably. The sharp, polished look she maintained throughout her prime softened, and her signature elegance gave way to a more fragile exterior in her later years. Because she largely retired from the spotlight, the public saw her only occasionally, making the contrast between her youthful radiance and her older appearance even more dramatic when glimpses surfaced. For fans who remembered her as the stately Baroness Schrader, or the glamorous leading lady of earlier decades, her later life transformation was striking. Despite the changes brought by time, Parker remained a symbol of sophistication. Her long career, talent, and grace far outshone the fading of youthful beauty. And from her story of refinement and resilience, we transition to the final actress on our list, a beloved performer whose long life and warm, approachable charm made her a Hollywood treasure, even as the years reshaped her familiar features. 25. Debbie Reynolds. Debbie Reynolds captured hearts from the moment she appeared on screen with her infectious smile, bright personality, and unmistakable charm. Bursting into fame with Singin' in the Rain, she quickly became one of Hollywood's most beloved stars. Reynolds embodied a wholesome, cheerful beauty that resonated with audiences of all ages. Her expressive eyes, radiant energy, and elegant voice made her a natural performer who thrived in musicals, comedies, and heartfelt dramas. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, she maintained a public persona built on optimism, grace, and girl-next-door appeal. As Reynolds aged, her appearance shifted significantly, particularly in her later decades. Her once round, vivacious features grew sharper, her expressions changed, and age brought visible signs that contrasted with the youthful glow many remembered from her early career. She lived a long life filled with public appearances, interviews, and performances, which allowed fans to witness her transformation over time. While the changes were natural and expected, they were nonetheless striking when compared to the bubbly young dancer who had charmed Hollywood in her youth. Yet Reynolds's spirit never dimmed. Even in her older years, she remained sharp, humorous, and deeply engaged with her audiences. Her transformation serves as a reminder that longevity brings its own kind of evolution, one shaped by experience, resilience, and authenticity. And with her story, we conclude this journey through the lives of 25 Golden Age Hollywood actresses whose appearances changed dramatically over time, reflecting the humanity behind the legends audiences believed would stay forever young.